All right, getting in more news break right now. Details coming in of UK Prime Minister's visit to Israel, who's already taken off for Israel. Now, just to share details of the visit of UK Prime Minister that would take place just a day after President Biden's visit to Israel, Rishi Sunak will hold talks and discuss with the Israeli government on ways to ensure safe passage is provided for the UK nationals who've been stuck in Gaza City. Not just this, the other issue that's going to be focus of discussion between Rishi Sunak and Netanyahu is going to be the humanitarian corridor for the people in Gaza who've been displaced, hundreds and thousands of them who've been at the receiving end of this raging war between Hamas and the Israeli forces. So this is a two-day visit of Rishi Sunak to Israel, and in this two-day visit of Rishi Sunak, the two issues that would be spoken about widely are one being UK discussing with Israeli government on safe passage that should be provided for its nationals who've been stuck in Gaza City, and second, humanitarian corridor for the people in Gaza, hundreds and thousands who've been displaced. Hundreds of lives have been lost, and those who've been at the very receiving end of this war with the Hamas group. Now, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations came down heavily on the United Nations Security Council for failing to condemn the Hamas group in a fiery speech. The ambassador said that the only solution to stop Hamas and to ensure that such atrocities do not happen again is the utter obliteration of the satanic entity. He also added that the council should be purely focused on condemning the Hamas terrorists, supporting Israel's right to defend itself, and demand from Hamas to immediately release the hostages it has been holding for days now. Not just this, the Israel ambassador has said that this assault by the Hamas group is even worse than the 9/11 attack. Listen in to that statement of the Israeli envoy who's spoken at the United Nations on the Hamas assault.
Council members, what is going on here? I'm truly shocked. I'm horrified. I truly don't understand what is going on here. The most barbaric and wide-scale terror attack in decades, bigger than 9/11, was perpetrated 11 days ago, and it seems like this council has already forgotten. The pictures and footage from the October 7th pogrom are seared into my brain, in every Israeli's brain, forever. But it seems that I must remind some of you of what happened. Thousands of barbaric Hamas Nazis invaded Israel and brutally murdered 1,400 innocent Israelis as they slept, celebrated, hugged their families in fear, and cried for mercy. Some were raped, others beheaded, and some were burned alive while bound and gagged. Many were children, and hundreds were young people at a music festival. There were many paramedics, talking about medical teams, there were many paramedics who were murdered on their way to treat the wounded, mothers who watched as their babies were slaughtered, and elderly Holocaust survivors who endured the Nazis only to be executed in their own living room. This was planned and carried out deliberately by the terrorists that rule Gaza today, as we speak. Not by accident, not by mistake, but deliberately. 200 innocents were violently taken hostage, many of which are nationals of your own countries. I read Hamas's charter aloud to you just 2 days ago. Hamas's words were not empty threats. Hamas's charter is their action plan. Their goal is the annihilation of Israel. And if Hamas has the opportunity to commit these atrocities again, they will, and you know it. Although there are some here that choose not to designate Hamas as a terror organization for political reasons, it still doesn't change the facts. Hamas deliberately targets civilians and massacres children when given the chance. This makes Hamas a terror organization, no different than ISIS. They do not believe in dialogue, they don't want a dialogue, not in political solutions. They only believe in exterminating Jews and annihilating the Jewish state. And nothing can change their genocidal ideology.
Now, in a big announcement that's coming from US President Joe Biden is on the humanitarian assistance that's been announced by the US, essentially a $100 million aid that is going to be provided from the US side for the people living along the Gaza Strip and the West Bank area. In fact, President Biden has said that Egypt has allowed 20 trucks with humanitarian aid supplies to cross the Rafah border. Biden made this comment hours after he left Israel. The president told the reporters that he spoke with Egyptian president, who has now agreed to reopen his country's sealed border crossing to allow the trucks carrying humanitarian aid to cross the border area and reach the people living not just in Gaza but along the West Bank as well. Listen into that soundbite of President Biden.
20 trucks. This has been a very blunt negotiation I've had, and so we want to get as many of the trucks out as possible. There's, I guess, 150 or something there. Not all of them will go. The first tranche, if there's a second tranche, see how it goes. The commitment is, if in fact they cross the border, the UN is going to be on the other side and then distributing it, which is going to take a little time to set up probably. But the point being that if Hamas confiscates it or doesn't let it get through or just confiscates it, then it's going to end, because we're not going to be sending any humanitarian aid to Hamas if they're going to be confiscated. That's the commitment that I've made. And so the bottom line is that El-Sisi deserves some real credit, because he was very accommodating and, quite frankly, as everyone I've spoken to thus far since this trip began.